What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. With this month's update, we got some new weapon refines for Gwendolyn, Leon, Siegbert, and Narcian. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing them, analyzing them, and also giving you guys some builds for them. So the timestamps to each of the unit is going to be in the description right below that like button. So if you want to jump to a specific unit, you could do that. And with that said, let us begin. Gwendolyn used to be one of the best free-to-play units to invest into along with Sheena a couple of years back when the score power creep wasn't really that much, and a lot of people built her up as a plus 10 unit in that time, and having this kind of weapon refine on a free-to-play armor unit really breathes a new life into her, and this weapon refine is actually really good. And it doubles down on her role. It gives her -1 special cooldown, which is the same effect what Slaying Lance had. And the weapon refinery effect gives her +4 defense and resistance if she has got more than half health, and special cooldown charge +1 per foe's attack during the combat. So the +4 defense and resistance actually works in both phases, so that is just fantastic. And the other effect of special cooldown only gives you the special cooldown on foes' attacks. It doesn't give you the special cooldown on your attacks, so it's kind of like a half breadth skill where only the foe's attacks are going to be giving you the special cooldown. And this is actually not that bad because it works perfectly well with skills like Vengeful Fighter and Bullfighter, which just give you the special cooldown on your attacks, and then she gets the special cooldown on the enemy's attacks with this weapon refine, if it makes sense. So this has got really great synergy with the fighter skills. If you have a +10 Gwendolyn and you like to use her in arena like me, then she no longer needs to run a 300 SP slots skill for the max arena scoring thanks to this preferred weapon. The -1 special cooldown which this weapon provides helps her retaliate back instantly with any kind of 310 special, and in general just opens up a lot of special options for her because not only she can have -1 special cooldown, but she can also charge up her specials faster. So that is just really good for having a lot of options. I wouldn't really recommend you to build a +10 Gwendolyn in 2020 because she simply gets outclassed when it comes to pure scoring by many free-to-play units like Astrum, Itsuki, Flame Emperor, and on same score range we do have Mini Nerva, who is a flying unit with a preferred IO shield. So, you have to consider those things before you invest into her as a score stick because the armor movement is not really all that good. But if you have a +10 Gwendolyn already, then yeah, this is a really good weapon refine, and as someone who has her, I'm extremely happy about this. Now let's go for some of her builds. The first build is a budget build with using Fierce Stance. You can easily get this from Bantu, and you can run something like Steady Stance, Sacred Seal, and just have Weary Fighter. And this allows Gwendolyn to instantly retaliate back with Bonfire, which does 24 damage with her high defense. The second build is also another budget build, but using Quick Riposte. So using this, you could abuse Ignis, which becomes a 310 cooldown special, and you can do massive amounts of special damage with double Steady Stance. The third build is a moderately cheap build because Vengeful Fighter is present in the Divine Code pool. And if you're unlocking that path, then you could easily get male Rima and give her Vengeful Fighter. It combos up extremely well with Weighted Lance, as I said, and she can fire off 5-turn cooldown specials like Ether in a single round of combat, so it's fantastic. And now we move on to some expensive options. So if you have a +10 Gwendolyn build like me, then this is probably the most optimal build for her in my opinion. So of course Vengeful Fighter combos up really well, as I've said before, and you can also run Panic Claw and Slotsy because I feel like that's by far the best option to abuse her high HP, and rallies are going to be super common in arena. So you could run this in Slotsy and have something like Attack Respond or Mirror Stance or just any amount of like Sacred Seals like Distant Defense or Defense Respond to just work with this kind of build. This encounter is also going to be helping you a lot facing some archers and mages in arena. And for example, if you get attacked by a Legendary Leaf, he just charges up your Ether by attacking you twice, and then you can just retaliate back and take him out with their Ether. So having this encounter is extremely good for arena and does provide you with more options to just take out units. You could also run Blue Flame and Weary Fighter. Weary Fighter does help you avoid doubles from threats in arena who run Bullfighter or just are very fast, so this could help her with the longevity. And this is something I'm considering myself because I'm actually unlocking the Awakening path. So Blue Flame from Owain can be really nice low cooldown special which gives you a lot of damage. And you could easily run this with a Bond Sacred Seal because it does synergize with it. Now, you could also run a mixed phase build like Bolt Fighter and Quick Riposte and just trigger Ether in both phases, and this is a really versatile build. And if you're running another armor unit on your team, then definitely Armor March is required. And now she can actually run Armor March without compromising with her max score. Now, if you're someone like me who has inaccurate Special Fighter on her, then you might be really regretting this, but to salvage it, I guess you could run something like this with Quick Riposte. Even though Special Fighter isn't really all that good of a skill to combo up with her Weapon Refine compared to Vengeful Fighter or Bolt Fighter, it still has its merits because it does give you the special cooldown on your attacks, and it also provides you with the guard status, which is going to be pretty useful in Arena because everyone and their mom has some kind of accelerating special type of skill. So you could do this to salvage it, but I wouldn't recommend you to go out of your way to give her Special Fighter after she has got this Weapon Refine. Now that was for Arena. If you do have a plus in Gwendolyn, she can actually be used as a Gale Force armor unit in Arena, and this Weapon Refine actually helps her a lot with that kind of thing. Wendy often gets compared to Effie for not having that much attack, but this is actually a blessing because this means that she will not be able to one-shot that many foes and instead will be able to double attack them and trigger her Gale Force. And Gale Force armors are actually pretty good for counterpicking against certain teams, and Gale Force teams are really hard to execute at times, especially when you cannot really beat all of the foes, and that's where like Armor Gale Force comes in, where you could Gale Force with the help of Bolt Fighter. You don't really have to run Heavy Blade Sacred Seal or anything, and you just eliminate the threats which are the most threatening to your armor units, and then you tank the hits from the remaining foes in the enemy phase. And Ether Raids is basically a den of ranged threats, so Distant Defense 4 helps her a lot, and you can run Distant Defense Sacred Seal, and already she's just so bulky at Plus and Merge, she'll be able to survive a lot of hits even though she's gonna get doubled. You could also run Attack Smoke or Pulse Smoke, and that could help you in survival. This might not look all that powerful on surface, but it's actually a fantastic counterpick against certain teams, and if it is utilized properly. The final build is for Ether Raids offense. So usually armor units, when they are used in Ether Raids, they are run with Special Fighter because that's basically the best skill for them, which allows them to retaliate back with stuff like Noontime or Soul. And Gwendolyn can do that, but with Ether, because she can have her slot be open and she can just charge up her special with her Weapon Refine and run something like Special Spiral, Dull Range, Vengeful Fighter, Odd Follow Up, or just run a build like this to abuse Ether with Special Spiral. But still, even though she looks really tanky, armor units are not ideal in Ether Raid's environment because they have got bad armor movement, and that's not really good when you want to get pots or you want to break structures. And they're gonna be foes with armor effective weapons, so you have to watch out for them. There are a lot of really good premium archers in this game, but Leon has always been a consistently good archer for free-to-play players to invest into. This Weapon Refine is pretty good for Leon, even though I feel like it doesn't fully capitalize on his role. It still does a good job, and it does give him some new options while still working with some old options. So it accelerates special trigger cooldown by 1, and at start of combat if he's above half health, then it grants him +4 attack speed and defense during the combat, and if he initiates attack, the foe cannot make a follow-up attack, so it's basically like an impact effect. And the stats he gets from this effect is actually useful in both phases, so this bow can be really versatile. The impact effect also makes it easy for him to enter into the desperation range, vantage range, and it can prevent him from dying against certain foes in the player phase. This also makes him a fantastic unit to be used in Ether Raid's defense, although I feel like he does face competition from someone like Kagero or Soth. Soth having pretty similar stat spread, having access to Cloud Mayogi, Ouch Pouch, and also the Cleaner Plus. Kagero, on the other hand, does have the damage reduction in her weapon, and she can also run an impact skill in slot A. Leon does have the impact skill built into his weapon, but he cannot really get any kind of damage reduction, but nonetheless, he's still a force to be reckoned with in the Ether Raid's defense, as I will show you. So this is a pretty good Weapon Refine, but as I said, this doesn't fully capitalize on his role, and many Leon players are still going to be using stuff like Spendthrift Bow Plus or Brave Bow for the merits they pursue, which this bow does not offer. Nonetheless, it's a powerful Weapon Refine for what it's worth. And now let's take a look at some of his builds. For the budget build, I feel like you should try to capitalize off his Weapon Refine and run a plus speed IV. If you're running like a low merged Leon, then you could probably go with plus attack IV and Brave Bow, but I'm trying to focus on the Weapon Refine in this video. So Sparrow, I feel like, is the best budget skill from Naysala because Fury doesn't have good synergy with his Weapon Refine's effect. So with the plus speed IV with double so Sparrow, you could reach 46 speed and 62 attack unboosted in the player phase. And the special is pretty flexible for him, but this is basically capitalizing on what this new weapon refine brings him. The next build is just a max investment one for the same build. And here you could see that he reaches 50 speed unboosted, and he can actually utilize Flashing Blade with this new weapon refine, and you could easily run Desperation on him. The next build is for the people who don't really like where this new weapon refine takes him with plus speed IV. So if you don't really feel like using that, you could use your plus attack IV and run a build like this to just spam AoE specials, and the -1 special cooldown helps with this a lot. So you have to run Life and Death 4 because AoE specials calculate damage based on the visible attack stat, and you could run a similar build without Life and Death but by running Bonfire to make use of his high defense. The next build is for what I was talking about, Aether Raid's defense. So because of its impact effect in the weapon refine, it makes him a really good unit to become a Wings of Mercy anchor for the other nukes. So the idea is for him to initiate combat, fall below the 50% health so that he can be in the Wings of Mercy range of the other nukes. Then the other nukes from your team just teleport and make a hot mess of your opponent's team. Now, even though I said that Fury is not synergetic with this weapon, Aether Raid matches are very short and the first interaction counts the most. So using his impact effect in the Refine and Fury 4, he can make himself fall into the Wings of Mercy range of the other nukes on your team, and then they can just teleport and destroy your opponent's team. So you want to run something like Ignis or Dragonfang, and Leon's HP is at a really perfect sweet spot where on an infantry pulse team he can receive special cooldown from infantry pulse from a frontline unit like Seliph or Brave Ike, or a dancer like Sylvia or Ninian, and he can provide the infantry pulse support to other nukes who don't really have that much HP like Bramimon, Thrusier, or nukes like those. As I said before, Kagero and Soth also are pretty good options for a build like this on an infantry pulse team, but Leon with his weapon refine definitely is a pretty strong option as well. The final build is for Aether Raid's offense, so because of the mixed phase nature of his weapon refine, he can be used as a close counter Vantage Sweeper in Aether Raids because it does provide him with extra attack. Now, Spendthrift Bow a few weeks ago was definitely the go-to weapon for Leon from Midori, but if we compare Spendthrift Bow to this, Spendthrift Bow's might is 12 and it gives him +7 attack. Meanwhile, Bow of Beauty is 14 might and gives you 4 attack. So with Spendthrift Bow, you're pretty much getting 19 attack, and with Bow of Beauty, you're getting 18 attack. So the difference isn't really all that much, but it's definitely pretty big when it comes to bulk because Spendthrift Bow gives him -7 attack debuff on the foe, effectively giving him +7 attack and resistance in the combat. So that's really significant for surviving a lot of attacks, and really goes up to you if you want to run Spendthrift Bow or just have Bow of Beauty. Obviously, you could run Close Counter if you don't have Close Foil, but Close Foil does give him more bulk and attack, so that is super useful. When Siegbert first came out, he beat Brave Roy in the competition. Then when Brave Roy got the weapon refine, he beat Siegbert. But then when Eliwood got Blazing Durandal and its refine, he just bullied both of these lads. But now Siegbert has got a redeeming chance with this weapon refine, so let's see how he fares. Dark Greatsword always had the Swift Sparrow effect, and with the weapon refine, if he's not adjacent to an ally, it gives him +5 attack and speed, and also neutralizes any kind of foe's bonuses from visible buffs like Fortify, Rally, or Hone skills during the combat. So it basically gives him attack speed solo 2.5, I would say, because of the 5 attack and speed he gets. And the neutralizing foes bonuses is pretty amazing because he doesn't really need to run LOL skills. An argument is to be made that this isn't really as unique as Blazing Durandal's weapon refine, which gives you effects which cavalry units cannot naturally have, where Siegbert naturally has access to LOL skills in slot B. Nonetheless, this is still a good weapon refine because it gives him essentially +9 attack and speed in the player phase when he's alone, and it also neutralizes foes bonuses, which is really helpful because he doesn't really care if you have a defense, speed, or an attack buff, and he can just nullify that, and that helps him a lot in combat, in outspeeding, in doing more damage, and in taking less damage. And he can be an extremely powerful unit, being able to outspeed a lot of unit and hit extremely hard, but he suffers from a disease known as just use Eliwood, bro, because at the end of the day, Eliwood is an easily mergeable unit with Blazing Durandal's weapon refine. It's much better because of having steady impact and special fighter built into it, which as I said, cavalry units cannot easily get. And that makes him a very consistent Gale Force unit, and he doesn't need to run Heavy Blade Sacred Seal unlike Siegbert if he wants to function as a Gale Force unit. And he can also work really well in Aether Raid's defense because he just stops any kind of enemy follow-up attack and he can work as a lunge unit. Meanwhile, Siegbert is a 5-star locked unit and it's really hard to get the preferred IVs for him and in general get the merges on him. So he is very powerful, does have a lot of stats and can be really fast and very threatening, but at the end of the day he kinda pales in comparison to Eliwood in grand scheme of things. His builds are pretty straightforward because his slot B is open and there are not really too many options for his slot B, so you wanna run Desperation most of the time. And with the first budget build, you could run Death Blow, which is his default skill, and with Darting Blow Sacred Seal. The other build is utilizing Fury and Brazen Attack Speed, and the third build is just utilizing Sparrow. So he can have triple Sparrow basically with his weapon, and he can be incredibly powerful and super speedy even at unmerged. But if you have some investment on him, and if you're serious about building him, here are some more premium options. So I'm assuming that at minimum you have +1 merge and all of the Dragon Flowers. Now, as for the IVs, you probably want to go with plus attack IV if you are not running a Gale Force build. But if you're running a Gale Force build, then plus speed IV is much better. There are two reasons for that. The first reason is that it's really important to outspeed for getting Gale Force in a single round of combat. And as game progresses on, the speed creep has been going high. There are so many fast units in the game. And the other second point is that having higher attack can actually be a drawback because you might just one-shot the opponent, and doubling them is much more preferred so that you can trigger your Gale Force. So that's basically the IVs what you want to go for, depends on the build you have in mind. The first build utilizes Sparrow, Gale Force, and Heavy Blade. You could also run him with Purge Skill because it can help him get into Desperation and Brazen Attack defense range. And of course, Rouse Speed defense is available on Ferdinand, and it does have good synergy with his Weapon Refine. At the end, we have got the Heavy Blade for Quick and Pulse, Gale Force builds. So Gale Force becomes a 4-turn cooldown special, and even against a range unit, if he just attacks twice, he will still be able to trigger his Gale Force. The final builds for him are using the solo skills. Attack speed solo is absolutely insane with his weapon, gives him so strong offenses, and he can run Heavy Blade and Gale Force with that. Lethe is in the Divine Codes path, so you could get Speed Defense solo and just run Death Blow, or you could run Attack Defense solo and just run Darting Blow. Siegbert can also run an Aether Raid's defense build with Lunge and Fury 4, and the neutralizing effect of his Weapon Refine is super good because many of the tanks and pretty much everyone just uses visible buffs, so it can be pretty nice to just ignore those while also running Lunge in the slot B skill. However, I still feel like Eliwood does a better job with this because he can just stop the enemy follow-up attacks, and it also does not let them charge their specials. Narcian was always a pretty weird Gen 1 unit because his stat spread was all over the place and his offenses weren't really all that good. So this Weapon Refine is actually pretty decent in vacuum, but on Narcian it's really underwhelming because it doesn't really help him much with his outdated stat spread, especially his offenses, which are super terrible. It doesn't help him with the special cooldown reduction or anything of that nature which can help him do more damage output. So I feel like if this Weapon Refine had like 1 or 2 more effects, that would have been really good and super helpful to him because this is frankly just not enough. So this Weapon Refine tries to capitalize on his mixed bulk and tries to make him a self-sustaining mixed tank. So when he deals damage to a foe during combat, it restores 7 HP to him. It's kinda similar to the Minty Cane weapon or the Christmas weapons we got. And the Weapon Refine gives him +4 to all of his stats if the penalty is active on the foe. And this is a really easy condition to trigger with help of Temari Dagger, Aversa, Iago, Sabotage skills, Shield skills, and stuff like that on the teammates. Unfortunately, Narcian doesn't have any innate debuffs with his weapons. If that was the case, that would have been pretty fantastic, but nonetheless, teammates can be utilized for stuff like this. And even with this Weapon Refine, Narcian is going to be requiring a lot of team support, as I said, to function better, unfortunately. As for his builds, I want to go over the budget option first, but honestly, I wouldn't really recommend anyone to have a low merge Narcian. Either you just not build him, or you build him and go all the way up to +10 merge, and that shouldn't really take you too many grails because he has been rerun many times. but a low merge Narcian is going to be struggling a lot with his stat spread. And you could still run this if you do like his voice acting art or you just like this weapon refine. And steady stance 3 with quick riposte and close defense can be run with bonfire for just an enemy phase build that can help him self-sustain his quick riposte condition. And then we have the plus 10 merge builds for the people who already have him built. Obviously, distant counter IO shield is the bread and butter with this kind of build for a mixed phase tank, and the healing from his weapon is actually pretty nice for maintaining the guard condition and the quick riposte. So you could run that in the third build, and threaten attack speed does help him trigger the weapon effects condition. And if you do not want to run that, then just like the other builds, you could run a smoke skill like attack smoke. And then you could also invest even further into him with more premium skills. With stuff like Fortress Defense Res, you could just make him a melee tank, and Mystic Boost can help him heal up as much as 20 HP in a single round of combat. So that is extremely good for self-sustainability, and that is extremely premium but still nonetheless an option. And you want to run Iode Shield Sacred Seal so that you can protect him from archers. But for the second build in the middle, we can let go of that and run attack speed push 4, mystic boost, and quick riposte. So this just makes him a duelist of a sort with high speed and high attack, and this allows him to offset the damage he receives from the push skill with mystic boost and his weapons healing. And finally, we have Narcian for the Ether Raids offense. So he could be run with 2 air so that he can get more resistance. Both of the light mythics are flying units, so you could run ward flyers on them so that they can support Narcian for some bulk. But he's really not going to be able to hit that hard to finish off a lot of things. He's going to be pretty decently bulky with this, with 61 HP and 41 resistance and having a pretty nice defense. But in general, like, his offenses are lacking. So you would have to support him with someone like Brave Lucina so that he can trigger instantly his noontime and just retaliate back with it while also getting some attack boost. So those were the weapon refines of this batch. My personal favorite was definitely Gwendolyn's, which goes really well with her role, and I already have her at plus and merge, so I'm really happy about that. So let me know in the comments if you're going to be building any of these units. I want to thank all of my YouTube members, and if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and share this video with your friends who do have these units. And when you subscribe, please be sure to hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as many of the Sword Cavaliers when they're compared to Eliwood. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.